teaching guitar lessons and drum lessons to Speech of Arrested Development. I was teaching his kids, and one day he was like, "Hey, man, I need a guitar player to play with Arrested Development for this upcoming Japan tour."
In this video, I'm interviewing Jason, and we're going to talk about the concept of how to grow your music skills and sound. That's what my YouTube channel is about. And I'm going to ask him how he thinks he can, help you grow your music skills and sound. But first, we're going to give him he's going to go through and give us his background. So can you hear me? Is the mic doing all kinds of weird things on you, or is it okay?
No, it's okay. I hear a little bit of a room ambience, but
yeah, me too.
It's not out of control.
All right, cool.
Yeah. So, what did you ask me again?
So,
I started off as a drummer. I was a professional drummer. I was playing in blues and rock bands when I was 15. My dad had to drive me to my gigs and stuff, and I was playing in nightclubs really with a bunch of guys that worked with my parents. So I learned, classic rock and blues and stuff like that, and started doing that. And I wasn't allowed to practice my drums past 7:30 at night because it drove my parents crazy, and the neighbors could hear it. So
yep, I understand.
When I was 16, my parents got me an acoustic guitar, it's a cheap little, Fender acoustic, just so I could have something to do in my room. And so I would tinker on it, but I never really took it seriously. And I would learn, I learned like Black Sabbath's Paranoid riff from my neighbor who lived across the street, who had like a Charvel, 80s metal guitar. And, so he would show me a couple things here and there. We played like Detroit Rock City in the garage and, stuff like that. But my main concern was just playing drums. I practiced drums every day. I was learning music. I was gigging, every weekend as a drummer. And I started hosting open mics in Atlanta, Northside Tavern, Fat Mats and stuff. So I would bring my drums and let other drummers come sit in. Well, a lot of times I would get bored while other drummers were playing my drum set. I would open the night off playing like a 45-minute set, and then I would go play pool and hang out with my friends. But after a while, I'm like, these guys would get up with their guitars that were kind of weekend warriors, which is fine. But I was just like, man, I want to bring my guitar out. While I'm not playing drums, I might as well start, practicing getting on stage with my guitar.
Totally.
And I at the time I knew the minor pentatonic scale, and that was it. I knew 1-4-5, chords. That was it. And I only knew one position of the minor pentatonic scale, just that regular blues box, that first one. And so I started getting up, for fun and jamming on a song, and I would feel like a total idiot. I didn't know what I was doing, but we just had fun, So I started touring with blues bands, and I would start learning from them. We would be on the road, and we'd have time off at sound check or the hotel, and I'd be like, "Hey, show me how to play that Taj Mahal riff," or this Muddy Waters riff, and they would show me some stuff. So I started learning licks, and then one time with my band Mudcat, we hired this percussionist, played congas. He also played trap set. Well, we started doing this thing where we would open the show with me on electric and him on drums, and then the main guitar player wouldn't be on stage yet. So I would open the night doing a blues instrumental, or I would sing like a Freddie King song, and then we would switch, and I'd go back to drums, and then Mudcat would walk down the aisle with his wireless remote playing his open G gut buck recording slide guitar riffs, and and the crowd would just flip out, so I started doing that, and then I would just start jamming more and more, and Mudcat was always like Danny is his name. Mudcat was the band. They call him Mudcat too, but Danny was one of the guys on the blues scene in Atlanta that was probably the most encouraging to me, because I was a drummer. Everyone knew me as a drummer, but he was like, "Go ahead, keep soloing." He would let me go around through the progression more. He would always push me, and he was never threatened by me, a drummer wanting to play guitar. And other guitar players, after a while, when they saw when I started taking it seriously, they would be like, "All right, hey, we got enough guitar players in Atlanta, just stick to the drums," kind of thing. And that, and that was kind of discouraging.
Yeah.
And then when I became a Christian and started playing for church, they already had a drummer. And I would fill in on drums, for services, but I started learning how to play in a larger ensemble and learning gospel songs and church songs, which was completely different.
On guitar or drums? On guitar?
Drums, on drums.
On drums.
I'm sorry, on guitar. You're right.
Guitar.
So now I'm starting to learn how to do like different type songs than blues. All I played before was blues. That was it. So these different formats and everything was like not what I was used to. And it was very hard for me. It was very challenging, but I started doing it and everybody was, very patient and help and encouraging and, and so I started, and in all this time I would take lessons here and there. And that's when I would have like some real growth. Whenever I would sit down with another instructor in person, have them show me something. Because on drums, I could listen to something on a record and be like, I could figure that out. I could hear it and know what they're doing. But on guitar, I couldn't do that at all. And I still have a hard time with it. I'm light years better at it now than I was, 20 years ago. But back then, it was like, you just have to show me. I can't learn this, I didn't know any theory, or anything like that, So anyways, and then I got asked to, I started teaching basic guitar lessons and drum lessons to kids. And I was teaching guitar lessons and drum lessons to speech of Arrested Development. I was teaching his kids, and one day he was like, "Hey man, I need a guitar player to play with Arrested Development for this upcoming Japan tour. Are you interested in doing it?" And I was like, "I'll check my schedule."
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he gave me a VHS recording of one of his shows, and so I could listen to the guitar player on the tape and learn the show. Well, I didn't, like I said just a second ago, I couldn't figure it out. I didn't know what they were doing. I couldn't figure any of the stuff out on my own. So I called up Dean Capolino. You know Dean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Dean was studying jazz guitar at Georgia State at the time. He knew every chord, every scale. He could do everything. So he came over to my house, watched the tape, and he was like, "Oh, they're just doing this." And he would watch it and then show it to me on guitar. And then I would, if he just showed it to me, I could learn it. So that's how I learned the whole show, was from my brother Dean, my friend. He just taught me the whole show.
That's awesome.
So he showed it to me, and then I practiced it for a couple weeks, and then I still had the audition. I didn't have the gig, even though I was offered the gig. And then I went and auditioned. I nailed it, and the rest is history. Of 16 years later, I've been the touring guitar player with Arrested Development, and play with my wife's band, Fire on the Knife, and I still study, I still practice, and I still try to learn as much because guitar was a secondary instrument. I still feel like I have some holes here and there that I want to fill in. And so, wow,
you gave me chills, man. The last thing you said. Well, so was that one of the best days of your life when Speech said, "Oh, there's your dog too"? When Speech said, "You want to go tour with me in Japan?"
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. And I brought my wife with me on that first trip, and that wasn't my first gig with the rest of them. My first gig was in Aspen, Colorado. They had a couple gigs before Japan, and it was freezing. It was an outdoor show, and it was freezing. It was up, in Aspen. There's snow everywhere, and I'm nervous because I'm playing in front of thousands of people outdoors on a big stage, first time like on a really big stage, and my hands are shaking, and I'm just cold and nervous. And then the second show, we opened up for Jason Mraz down in Florida, like a week later, at Disneyland down in Florida, Orlando. So that was on my second gig with Arrested Development. And then soon after that, we were in Japan, like a month or two later or something.
So what's it like playing in front of, what's the biggest crowd you played in front of?
Oh, gosh. I would say like 73,000 people in New Zealand. We played in a big soccer stadium for a reggae festival called the Ragamuffin Festival.
Wow.
And then I've done similar crowds. It's hard to judge once they get that big. It's hard to judge. And we did another festival called Fruitstock in London, which there's video of that on YouTube. Arrested Development, like live in London at Fruitstock, and you could just see just the sea of people.
Man, that is so cool. It's like a dream. It's like a dream come true right there.
Absolutely.
So it's probably not. I mean, once you play in front of 5,000 people, it's probably not much different. I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, if you can only see, I don't know if it's much different.
Yeah, it's funny because now I get nervous. I get more nervous now playing in front of a small audience because it's more personal, and I could really like see you're closer and you feel like more exposed. I don't know why that makes sense, but on bigger, larger audiences, it's still a rush. But I mean, I don't get nervous. I mean, we just go out and we do our job. But I've been doing it 20 years now, so
wow,
so that's
amazing.
Yeah.
So do you still play drums at all?
I do, not nearly as much. I played drums on a couple of Arrested Development tours when we needed it, and then there were a couple tours where I was running back and forth and playing drums and then guitar.
That's fun.
Yeah, depending on the song, because our drummer at the time had basically bailed on us as we were flying to Australia, and he took a higher paying gig with Mary J. Blige. Yeah.
Like, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Okay.
I got paid double that tour.
Hey, you're playing two instruments. Sweet.
Yeah.
So how often do you practice now? Like as far as practice, do you practice daily or do you practice, like what is your deal with practice?
Guitar, I practice daily. It's very rare that I don't pick it up at least for 10, 15 minutes.
So you make it your goal to not miss a day kind of thing?
It's not my goal. It's not like this is my goal and then I set out to do it. It's just, I just do it because I have, I'm in my living room and all my gear is in here. We've been recording a record in the living room.
Sweet.
We have hangers on the walls. So we make sure we have guitars on the walls in like all the rooms that we spend most of our time in, except the kitchen, of course. But
you gotta eat. You gotta eat, right?
Yeah, but there are times where I have the guitar in the kitchen and I'm by the coffee machine and I'm running scales or doing something,
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I play, daily for sure.
That's good. So to talking to the audience, what would your advice be to help somebody who's trying to learn how to play guitar, even if they've been playing for a while, to improve their skills, and also their sound?
Skill-wise, I mentioned earlier, a lot of my biggest growth was from taking a lesson with somebody. I took jazz guitar lessons. I took online Berkeley scales class. That was online, but when I actually got with somebody in person, that's when I had my best growth.
Live stream, sorry.
So I would say, obviously right now with the whole COVID-19 thing, it's a little more difficult for people to get together, but it's winding down here in Atlanta. But, take online classes with somebody.
So you're like online, like somebody that you can interact with, or are you
somebody that can see you, or if you know of somebody local that you can go to their house or they can come to you, the best thing to do is have a class in person or a lesson in person. That's the best thing you do. There are online educators. Guthrie Trapp has some great stuff. I mean, there's a bazillion people online. So figure out like the style you want, Google them, and there are people you can reach out to and email who are looking to give lessons on, especially touring guitar players that do it professionally. They're not touring right now, so they need to work anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So you prefer that to just watching a YouTube video or something? You prefer that? You think
you could learn from YouTube? Yeah, totally. That's great. I've learned a lot of stuff from YouTube. So spend as much time as you can. You could get down a little rabbit hole and lose focus. The reason why I like to spend time with one-on-one with somebody is they could help you focus on. They could watch you in real time, see what they can evaluate you, see what you need, and address that. And like, man, just work on this for the next 2 weeks, and then let's go from here to the next step and do it in a systematic way. I think that'd be the best way if you want to get better more quickly. If you're just wanting to learn how to play a Bob Marley song or whatever, you could Google how do you play this on guitar? You could find those all day long. But if you want to learn like, hey, I want to learn how to solo better, I need to learn how to play these chords better or this or that, whatever, something more specific, I think, it's good to get with somebody.
That makes
and as
perfect
far
sense.
as improving sound. Boy, I've been chasing my tail on that for a long time.
Well, I just know you know a lot about amps and guitars. Like I usually go with the multi.
I'm a total gearhead.
Yep.
And I've toured and geared with several different type guitars and amps and pedals and you name it. And it's been trial and error. And with Arrested Development, we do have backing tracks, and then we have 4 vocalists, and a lot of times we would have drums, bass, keys. So I'd have to find my place in the mix. In that ensemble. I had to find where I fit. So I had to be able to cut through without being too muddy, without being too loud. You got to find what's relative.
Right. Find the EQ, find exactly where it's not overdone.
So a lot of that is just by experience. And then, a lot of times different rooms, every time different rooms have different acoustics. So your rig will sound different from one night to another, going from one room to another. So I have to EQ the amp to the room, because some rooms will have a low frequency resonance where I have to dial out the low end on my amp because because it's too boomy. So I like my sound to be tight and clean and funky. So I usually set my amp very clean, and we have to have clean headroom. So I need a powerful amp, 30 watts, minimum. I usually, I don't tour with twins that often, just because I don't like the way they feel because of the stock speakers. But if I get an old vintage one in good shape with the speakers nice and worn in, those are great. But one of the biggest things, I think, if you're already playing in a band, one of the things you could do at your next gig is when you're setting up, and this helped me tremendously, is, a lot of times in local clubs, we have to stand right at our rig. So you're not your speakers are blowing by your knees, and speakers are directional. So it'll sound muffled to you. So you turn the treble up so it sounds like a real guitar, like, oh, it's cutting now. Well, with those settings, with you standing right next to your amp, if you walk 10 feet out to where the audience is and you hit, it's harsh and ugly, and it will make people frown. It's gross. Like, do not do that. And I did it for years, and I was like, it started sound checks. I'm like, man, let me see what one time my boss was like, man, can you turn down your treble? It's a little harsh. And I'm thinking, sounds perfect where I am. Well, he's at the front of the stage. I'm at the back of the stage near my amp. So finally, every sound check, I was like, well, let me hear what he's hearing. And also, I have another vocalist in front of me, Tasha, who I've toured with for years. So I would start going out there and I'd be like, ooh, that's harsh. I'd go down there and I would adjust it. And then I started pushing if I had a deep enough stage, I would push my amp further away, try to create space between me and my amp. And I would find a sweet spot to where the amp really feels like it's opening up. And it's not because I did anything different. Well, I did turn the treble down, but if I pushed it further away, have some breathing room, I could really hear the speakers bloom. And I would push it off to the side and hear it from one ear and the drums on the other, and create kind of a sound bubble with my guitar, my monitor with the tracks coming at me and the drums on my left side. And I would create a bubble based on the placement of my amp. But a lot of it, like I said, it depends on where you're standing in relation to your amp. So go out front, listen to it, and you'll realize, oh man, maybe that distortion pedal, it's way too saturated. Let me back off and turn the treble down. Or maybe it's too muddy, and you need to, I've been seeing bands to where they have the amp facing at their face because they want to hear it they want to use it as a monitor.
Yeah.
Well, then when you do that, yes, you do get lower volume, and that's great for the sound guy and maybe the room, but they end up turning the treble way down. And then now out front, it sounds muffled. So there's this happy medium of, you got to have clarity, and mid-range. Guitar is all mid-range. You don't want a muffled sound like this unless you're playing like in a jazz trio and you're going for that specific sound.
Yeah.
This was a pop band, you need that clean, that clarity
crisp
of that funky stuff, and
So does it go through this, like you mic the amps? Is that what you do? Because it's going to come out the speakers anyway, unless I guess it's depending on the gig size.
Big gig. Well, when I'm doing big festivals or even clubs, my mic, I always have my amp mic'd. Even when I'm doing local gigs, when I'm not on the road, if I'm doing something small and acoustic, I still mic my amp and I blend that in, not for volume, but for presence. It's more EQ.
To be equal with everybody else.
Yes. Otherwise, the vocals are like way up here and then the guitar way back here.
Yeah.
You know, I like balance. I'm a mix engineer as well. I work in production. So I like, I know some sound guys are like, if they could hear you on stage, they won't put you in the house. But the guitar sounds muddy and there's not a balance. So,
or like sometimes I played something and played my heart out, and then you listen to the recording and you can't even hear yourself at all because they turn you way down. Yes.
So, and I understand there's an aversion for, against, guitar players that are too loud. So that's why I hate elevating my amp, but I have to do it. If I have to do it for certain rooms, I'll do it a little bit, and or I'll turn it to the side and have it, instead of facing the crowd, going across the stage, and anything I can, to make the sound guy happy or play to the room. But there are plenty of times where I have my amp facing forward and I'm at a low volume, but I have it EQ'd in a way now to where
it's coming through.
I get that mid-range and I get that clarity without being harsh. So, and it's been trial and error for many years to get that. I find that you don't need a lot of bass. Like I have a little 12-inch speaker in this little combo. It's a Goodsell. It's a hand-wired amp made by a local guy in Atlanta here.
Nice.
Richard Goodsell. It's a Goodsell Super 17. It's only 17 watts tube amp. And a lot of times my bass is not off, but it's on maybe 1 or 2 because I'm using more gain. The gain adds bass, but it's a tighter bass. It's a saturated bass. That's
and plus you got the bass drum, the bass drums, and you got the bass, and you can't hear yourself. And then you have the keys on the other side, so you got to figure out where am I.
Yeah, don't be afraid to use radical EQ on your amps. Try, if you're playing with another band, try turning the bass down. And if you're able to get your volume up, you'll feel those speakers push from the mid range. You don't need all that low end thump. Leave all that room for the bass player, like you were saying.
Yep. Well, man, I appreciate this interview. I know you have to go and stuff, but thank you so much. I'd love to talk to you more, man. We need to hang out, do some recording, some jamming, some whatever.
But, Well, I hope this has been helpful for your viewers and stuff.
Definitely. Do you have a YouTube channel?
I do have a JJ Boogie channel, but right now we're doing live streams with my wife's band called Fire and the Knife, and we're trying to get a lot of traffic there. So we're doing weekend shows because we've been locked down. All my touring has been totally gone. I was supposed to be in Dubai, and a lot of big gigs were canceled. So we've set up our right here in our living room, and we've been live streaming here. So Fire and the Knife would be great, and you
can send me the links, and I'll put them in the description of this video.
Yeah, so and if anybody's in, so that group is like Americana roots rock type vibe. If any of your subscribers are into hip hop, follow Arrested Development music on YouTube. Also, Speech. He just released a solo album that I did a lot of production on.
Wow.
I did a remix of a song called Just Too Cold. The video's dropping tomorrow. Wow. I did all the production on that, all the music on that remix, and that's dropping tomorrow with the video. And
that's awesome.
Check it out. It's a lot of fun. I had a blast doing it.
Definitely. Yeah. Send me all those links. I'll put all that stuff in the description with the arrows and stuff.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, awesome, cool. Man. Well, thank you so much. Again, I appreciate it, man. I look forward to talking to you soon.
All right, buddy. You guys take care.
Thanks. Bye.